Hey, math friends, our learning target today is I can multiply and divide fractions and mixed numbers. So today is about multiplying and dividing. So we won't have to find that common denominator today. We only do that with addition, subtraction. So lots of kids tend to think that this is a little bit easier. So the first step is to turn all fractions into improper fractions. If if they're mixed numbers, I should say. If they're mixed numbers, turn them into improper fractions. You can do this trick called cross cancel if you can. It's like a shortcut. I'll talk about that. Kind of taking out common factors. You simply just multiply the tops, called the numerators. Then you multiply the denominators, the bottom. So multiply the top, multiply the bottom, and then put in lowest terms. So a little bit easier. You can use a calculator to help support you with your multiplication if you like. But try to do a lot of the steps like if you can on your own. So we don't need a common denominator today because it says multiply. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the tops. I should say, since we didn't have to turn them into improper fractions. Those are just fractions. So we multiply the tops, we get negative 18. We multiply the bottom, we get 28. And then we simply just put them into lowest terms. We could have cross-canceled on this one, but it's not a great one to do the example, so I'm just not going to. So we're going to divide the top by 2, which is negative 9. We're going to divide the bottom by 2, which is 14. And so we're left with negative 9 over 14 is your final answer for your first problem. In this particular case, you're just multiplying two fractions. One of them has a negative in it, so a little bit different from elementary because of that reason. All right, let's take a look about what about if we multiply two mixed numbers. Well, as the first step stated, we're going to want to have them in terms of improper fractions. So we see that we have this negative sitting on the outside. So I'll reattach that in a minute. So I'm going to multiply these two, which is 12. I'm going to add the numerator, which is 13, because I'm going to add 1. Over 4, reattach negative. Now again, pause the video. If you need time to write down the problem, just simply push pause. The sign in the middle is multiply. And then we're going to convert this this mixed number to an improper fraction. So that gives me 15. Add the numerator is 16, and we're going to write that over 3. Now the best part of this lesson is we don't have to find a common denominator. So we're just simply going to multiply the top and multiply the bottom. That's kind of the long way to solve. The other option is you could have cross-canceled these factors out. You could have taken a 4 out of each of those, and you'd get there faster. But from a teaching standpoint, from a video, I'm going to do it the long way, so the majority of the kids that are maybe struggling with it have a better strategy. But if you see that shortcut, go ahead and canceling out that 4 and 16. So I'm going to multiply the top. When I do that, I get negative 208. When I multiply the bottom, I get 12. So we just need to put this in lowest terms. So it's going to be negative. And the question is, how many 12s go into 208? And when I do that, I get 17. And there is a button on your calculator that will help you do that faster. So 12 times 17, if I'm using my calculator on that, 12 times 17 is 204. So that means my remainder is 4 twelfths. Ooh. And guess what? We know about 4 twelfths. That divides by 4, and that divides by 4. So that ends up with a negative 17. If I divide the top by 4, I get 1. And if I divide the bottom by 4, I get 3. Final answer is negative 17 and 1/3. Boom. That's multiplying mixed numbers with a negative. Cool part is we didn't need a common denominator. That's the beauty of those. All right, so we got a couple more here. So let's take a look at, well, both of these. Or these are division, actually. Whoops, these are division problems. Should understand my own notes, right? So what about dividing? Well, dividing works kind of the same way once we get started. So you're still going to turn them into impropers, like you always will. Super, super, super important. I'm going to put this in a giant highlighter. You have to change division sign to multiplication. You should have learned that in elementary school, that we change all division of fraction problems to multiplication by the multiply by the reciprocal. So hopefully you remember this rings a bell from earlier days. The only difference in our lesson today is it has negatives. And then after that, you can take the trick of cross cancel, multiply, and simplify. So you have some options on how to do the last simplification steps. But the key in our work today is both of these say division, which means we're going to have to change them to multiplication, and then we flip the fraction of the second number, the second fraction. So let's get in here and take care of this. So no common denominator needed, but we're going to leave the first fraction. We're going to change this to multiplication, and we need to flip, called the reciprocal, the second fraction. So it was 4/5. Flip it, flip it, flip it, it now becomes 5/4. There's definitely a shortcut available in this particular problem because those 5s can cross cancel and the 4 and the 8 can cross cancel. But as stated earlier, I'm going to take the long way. So if you see that, go for it. Please go for it. -40, multiply. Multiply the bottom is 20. Ooh, this is a beautiful one. So -40 divide by 20 is just simply -2. Nice, easy finish there. That was a nice finish. So that's how we divide. We actually change it into multiplication. But to do that in math, you don't just get to change the sign. You also have to do something else to adjust the math to keep it balanced. So we change it to multiplication by the reciprocal. All right. Next problem is going to be that same kind of thing happening. So first thing I need to do, though, is turn to improper fractions. So I'm going to multiply these two, which is 21. I'm going to add the numerator, which is 22/7. I'm going to change to multiplication. Except before I do that, I got to get this to an improper fraction. So that's 11 plus the numerator. I'm going to give myself an arrow here. So 11 plus the numerator is 14/11. Reattach the negative. So I'm just converting right now. But in this change from division to multiplication step, we need to multiply by the what? By the reciprocal, which means I have to flip this. So first I convert it, and now I need to flip that whole thing. Now as math teachers, we really don't like the negative in the bottom, but I'm going to end up cleaning this problem up anyway. So I'm not going to worry about it right now in the moment. So I'm going to backtrack this, make sure you have some understanding of what happened. The first thing that I did is I converted the first mixed number, multiplied that, I got 22 plus 1 is, or I should have said 21 plus 1 is 22/7. Then I knew I had to change this to multiplication and I had to flip this. But before I can flip it, I got to convert it to an improper fraction. You can't flip a mixed number. It has to be a fraction. You have to have a top and a bottom. You can't have a whole value mixed in there. So I multiplied these two, which is 11. I add the numerator, which is 14/11, reattach. And now that I've converted it, now I flip it. So now, to finish this up, we multiply the tops. So we have 22 times 11 is 242. And we multiply the bottoms. Is -98. So we know that the resulting sign of that is going to be negative. And 242 divided by 98 is -2, which gives me 196. So -2 and 46/98. So what you have to figure out right now is, can we simplify that anymore? So -2 and 46/98. Well, some things I see for sure is that I can simplify this and this by dividing by 2. So if I divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, I get 23 on top. And thinking about what do I get on the bottom? Well, half of 49 or 98 would be 49. And I think this is our final answer because I believe 23 is a prime number. So I'm unable to simplify. All right, so we did multiplication, we did division. So let's do these last two. And I'm going to use these just as fraction problems. I'm not going to use these as improper having to convert. So last two problems of the day. Well, if we multiply this, actually, is there a multiply one here? Yeah, let's do this one instead. I'm going to do this one instead. So converting, multiply these, that's 10. Add the numerator, that's 13, over 5. Drag down the sign. This is just multiply, so we're not flipping anything. It's just a nice multiply problem. We need to make this a fraction, which is 10 over 1. Now, I could take a shortcut here. I really could, because that 5 and 10 are common factors, but I'm not going to. That gives me 130 if I multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms. So if I multiply tops, multiply the bottoms, I end up with 130. Divide by 5 gives me 26. Now, I don't have any negatives in this problem, so this is really an elementary math problem, but that was my conversion to improper, and then we just go from there. And then the last problem of the day, I want to hit this division problem. So why don't you pause the video, give that one a shot. And for this one, now that you've paused the video and you've given it a shot, coming back in the game, you see division, you should be thinking, oh boy, I got to change that to multiplication by the reciprocal. So we're going to leave the first fraction alone. We're going to change this to multiplication by the flip reciprocal. Now I do see a cross cancel, a shortcut there, but I'm not going to do it. We're going to multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms. And the question is, can I put this in lowest terms? Well, I know the resulting answer would be negative. And I think I'm going to start just by dividing some stuff out. I know that a 3 can go in there. And I know a 3 can go in there. So that gives me negative 8 sevenths, which results in negative 1 time it goes in there, remainder 1/7. So negative 1 and 1/7. Make absolutely sure if you change the division to multiplication that you flip the second fraction. Make sure you do that. Okay, so summary for today's work. If you are multiplying fractions, so you have 1/4 times, let's say 2 and 2/5. First of all, you have to have two fractions. So you have a fraction here. This needs to be converted to a fraction. So we can call that, multiply that as 10, add the numerator would be 12. So it would be 1/4 times 12/5. You don't need a common denominator when you're multiplying. Multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms, and then we simply just put this in lowest terms. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2, and we end up with 3/5. So the goal, though, is you actually have to have a fraction. You got to get that to a fraction before you can multiply the fraction. So that would be a multiplication example or a summary. And then division we talked about, right? So if we had negative, let's say 2 and 2/5, and we divide that by 3/4, remember that we have to get this to a fraction. So that's 10 plus 2 is 12/5. Don't forget to reattach the negative. And now, if this is division, we change to multiplication and we flip the second fraction. Now, we only do that if it is division. Sometimes kids will start flipping everything. Then we multiply the tops, we multiply the bottoms, and then we convert it back. So this is kind of fast. This is just the summary, but it'd be negative. 15 goes in there 3 times, which is 45. So the remainder on that would be 3/15. We always want to put in lowest terms. So divide by 3, divide by 3. If I divide the top by 3, I get 1. Divide the bottom by 3, I get 5. Ooh, that was a good example, even though I just made it up. So that is the learning target of I can multiply and divide fractions and mixed numbers. Have a glorious night.